Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the News Today edition of 16th of June, wherein we pick up all important news of the day and explain it to you simply from examination perspective. So let's look at the important news which we are going to cover today. First is a major development around climate change. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Dialogue on Trade and Climate Convention has happened in Bonn. Similarly, again a similar news. New climate goals has been announced at the Bonn Climate Change Conference of 2026. Then UK has announced social media ban for children under age of 16 years. And again, we are going to discuss about India is facing water crisis in this harsh summer seasons, along with certain quick updates for the day. So the very first news here is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. They have talked about the idea of climate change, impact on trade, and this has happened in Bonn, and this is very important development around the topic of climate change, because there are many such scenarios where again you must have understood ki in the name of climate change, of course there are certain sustainable technologies, climate efficient technologies which are being used by developed countries, but that is putting the developing countries at a disadvantageous position because they are not able to have enough amount of finances to fund those new technologies, new climate resilient ways to deal with trade. And that is where this particular dialogue is established in order to express the concerns of developing countries, that how climate change is impacting the trade of their countries. And a very important topic for your upcoming mains examination from GS paper number 3, climate change. So under this conference, it was held under the 64th sessions of UNFCCC subsidiary bodies. So this is very important to understand what is the meaning of subsidiary bodies. We'll discuss this very briefly. So subsidiary bodies are those bodies you must have of course know about the Conference of Parties. This is an annual meeting under UNFCCC where again they are discussing the ideas of climate change. So political negotiations are happening in Conference of Parties. So but to what exactly to be discussed in these Conference of Parties, it is being held by these two permanent bodies established under the UNFCCC to support the Conference of Party process. One is the subsidiary body for scientific and technological advice, because climate change is of course going to deal with certain scientific, technical and methodological advice to Conference of Parties. So basically they act as a link between climate science and policy negotiations. And then one other body under this permanent group is subsidiary body for implementation. So you must have seen that again we have climate change agreements, but how effectively they are implemented, what kind of issues of finance, administrative or operational countries are facing, that is being discussed by this particular body. So these are the two bodies coming under UNFCCC. So this is what is the meaning of SB64. So SB64 means the subsidiary bodies. This is the 64th sessions of both these bodies, wherein they are going to come together. They are going to discuss the scientific and technical basis of climate action. Then they are going to review the country's implementation challenges with respect to climate change, and their recommendations are going to be forwarded for the upcoming Conference of Parties. And that is where all those things which are being discussed will be there and will be of course going to be recommended for Conference of Parties. We're going to happen this year in November in Antalya. That is where this is very important. Now let's discuss that how exactly they have discussed about climate change and trade, right? So need to understand the dialogue was basically a response, again as I discussed, developing countries are putting up responses due to these climate change technologies we are not able to adapt and we need financial support, and due to this there is a disruption or there is a slowdown of trade which these developing countries are facing. And that is where you need to understand this. Although the idea of climate change and incorporation of climate resilient technologies and tools are of course going to lead to the lessening of course the carbon footprints, but again at the very same time we also need to give consideration to developing countries demand, wherein developed countries have already damaged the not damaged, again harnessed the whole ideas of fossil fuel, and now they are at a stage where again they are developed. But what kind of challenges developing countries are facing, that is very important to be addressed, and that is where there are few examples for that. For example, we have trade measures linked to climate change. For example, we have a measure called as carbon border adjustment mechanism of European Union. What does it mean? It means, let's say if there is a steel manufacturing company in India and it is manufacturing steel and it is exporting to Europe. Now, if that steel manufacturing company is using high carbon intensive way of manufacturing that steel, then that company has to pay extra amount of taxes if it is entering the European market. Why it is happening? Because, of course, in the name of climate change, developing countries are looking for imports which are less carbon, which have used, of course, less carbon, and because that is again leading to the idea of maybe less or expensive exports, and that is again dealing with an idea of trade with respect to developing countries. That is an idea, right? Then we have green subsidies. So understand ki if I am giving you, let's say, 10,000 rupees to buy a laptop, and if I am not giving some money to any, there are many students, I am giving some students 10,000 rupees to buy a laptop, I am not giving any money to other group of students to buy a laptop. Who is going to be at an advantageous position? And that is where green subsidies comes into picture. There are a lot of subsidies in the name of green subsidies which are being awarded by developed countries because they can afford that, right? And that is not the case scenario with respect to developing countries, and that is one major challenge. Key, for example, US has used Inflation Reduction Act, which is designed to stimulate domestic clean energy production. Then apart from that, there are many other non-tariff barriers. What are non-tariff barriers? Which is not related to money and taxes, but there are other commitments which companies need to fulfill in the domain of trade. For example, mandatory corporate sustainability due diligence, then digital product passports, anti-deforestation laws of EU, all those compliances is leading to the ideas of exports getting more expensive in nature, which is again, let's say, compromising on the, let's say, exports of developing countries, and that is a concern which developing countries have raised. Now, what kind, it is going to create what kind of impact? Very simple, we have discussed all together. Number one, economic burden, yes, because such measures are going to create trade barriers, because if I am to pay, if I have to pay extra amount of money for my product to enter into European Union in the name of carbon trade mechanism, then again, of course, my products are going to be competitively less as compared to other countries. Then it is creating severe compliance cost and market access restrictions for developing economies, of course, self-understood over here. Then disproportionate sectoral impacts. We have seen that how European Union's carbon emission wala thing has impacted a lot of industries, specifically in India with respect to steel, iron, aluminum, and fertilizers, which are of course using carbon technologies or carbon-based input things. Then we have threat to structural transformation. Yes, we have seen that again, how exactly trade barriers have been threatening industrialization and the risk of locking them into low value extractive roles in new green energy economy. We have seen that again, developed countries have already become industrialized. Developing countries who are going for industrialization, which is very important for the economy, they have to be compromising on trade barriers, all those restrictions with respect to this. So these are the issues which have been put forward by developing countries and this Bonn conference of UNCCC. Now let's understand what are the other areas of differences between developing countries and developed countries, which were discussed in UNFCCC. Very important to understand. कि institutional governance. Developing countries बोल रही हैं कि we need to follow the rules, and we want rules to be framed around this by UNFCCC because it has something called as common but differentiated responsibility, and that is something they are hoping that again that thing will be the idea of developing countries or voice of developing countries would be dealt in the manner of making climate change agreements. But the developed countries want WTO to prefer the framework or to make rules around it, because WTO does not look into the idea of all such common but differentiated responsibilities. Again, they look around the ideas of only trade, and that's a major point of disagreement between these developing and developed countries. Then we have restricted policy space. We have seen that again, developing countries have been telling that how they have been facing a lot of restrictions which are put up by WTO on green subsidies and local content rules. Then while advanced economies are using massive budgets to dominate clean energy technology, because in the name of clean technology, green technology, subsidies are allowed, and that is a benefit and that is the advantage which developing countries are reaping, which is not of course being reaped by developing countries. And then we have technology access, because with the growing IPR, the growing intellectual property rights and all such things, technology transfers which are very much important for developing countries to adapt to the newer sustainable or carbon efficient technologies are not getting transferred to them due to IPR issues. And that is something that is a major point of disagreement, that again the strict IPR rules force developing nations to costly licensing, stalling global sharing of critical climate technology. So again, let's look at how we are going to see its result in the Conference of Parties 31, which is going to happen this year. 30 was happening in last time, COP30 Belém in Brazil. So let's discuss in November how we are going to see things around the ideas of climate change and trade with respect to developing countries. Very important. You can use these in your answers with respect to climate change, IR, international relations, the whole idea of institutions, their relevance. All such things are going to be helpful for you to write down a multi-dimensional points in your answer writing for mains examination. Then in the very similar conference, we have new climate goals which have been announced under the Bonn Climate Change Conference of 2026. Again, SB 64 we have discussed. So again, what has happened here? Again, for the 64th time, the United Nations UNFCCC has been convention which has been held in Bonn, Germany. So it serves as a main technical and negotiation meeting before Conference of Party 31. Kahan hone wala? It's going to happen in Antalya from 9th to 20th November 2026. That's very important fact. Basics about UNFCCC. So again, it was established after Earth Summit. Then again, 1984 it was adopted. Headquarters in Bonn. Then again, it has membership of 198 parties, including India. And the conference is basically focusing on practical sectoral targets to accelerate climate change action by 2035, which we are going to discuss in COP31, going to happen in November this year. Now, let's understand what kind of new climate targets they have put forward. Number one here is global electrification goal. So again, they are telling us, or the idea which has been discussed over there, or is that again we need to increase the share of electricity in the final energy by 35%. Because why? Because you must have seen we have been using a lot of fossil fuel based energy things, and that is where they have incorporated or suggested that we need to increase the final energy consumption of electricity by 35%. So because currently electricity provides only 20% of global final energy, many sectors are still dependent on fossil fuels, especially transport, heating and industry. यहाँ आपने देखा कि how they are heavily dependent on fossil fuels. Now they are telling कि please incorporate electricity for them. For example, for transport we can use electric vehicles, right? For heating and cooling systems we are going to use heat pumps, which is going to be run by electricity. We are going to modernize electricity grids. We are going to increase renewable electricity generation, and that's an idea because electrification will allow us to offset our demand from non-fossil fuel based energy to electrical energy, and electrical energy can be generated with the help of renewable energy resources. For example, we have solar, wind, hydro and nuclear power. That's an idea. So again, the benefit is going to be in terms of higher let's say usage and reduction of fossil fuel, for example coal, oil and gases, leading to significant cuts in the greenhouse gas emissions. That is an idea of climate change. Then second thing what we have discussed is global waste goal. We have seen that again we have put up a target that again by 2035 we need to reduce or we need to halve the amount of waste, global waste which we are generating, because this global waste generation majorly comes from food wastage. Food wastage leads to what? Emission of methane. Methane again a greenhouse gas, which is having a higher impact on climate change as compared to carbon dioxide, and that is where that has been discussed over here. So because food waste causes 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and again that is coming in the form of methane. And methane, again, as discussed, extremely powerful greenhouse gas, about 80 times more potent than CO2 over a 20-year period. So again, we are going, the targets which have been set up over here is to reduce the food loss and food waste, followed by capturing and reducing the emissions from landfills of methane, then promoting circular economy, for example, where materials are reused and recycled rather than discarded. That is an idea of reusable of things. And then increasing global circular material reuse, currently around 15%. We need to increase that. And that's where the idea of waste generation comes into picture. Of course, with less amount of methane, we are going to see less greenhouse gas emissions, and that is going to help solve the problem of climate change. And next we have the third target, that is resilient cities and buildings goal. As of now, it has been seen that the building sector energy intensity is very high. Buildings these days use a lot of energy in terms of electrical appliances. We have a lot of energy consuming things in those buildings, and that is where we need to incorporate more sustainability in the way we are building buildings. And that's an idea set up over here, that we need to reduce building sector energy intensity by at least 25%. What is energy intensity? Energy intensity basically means how much energy is required to provide a service. Kya hai services? For example, heating, cooling, lighting, etc. So lower intensity means greater efficiency and less dependence on energy resources. And of course, if less dependence on energy resources, more, let's say, or lessing down the idea of greenhouse gases, right? So buildings are amongst the world's largest energy consuming sectors, because if we are going to improve the efficiency in these buildings, it is going to help reduced energy demand, lower emissions, and cuts bills for households and businesses. It is going to impact in terms of better, कैसे कर सकते हैं इसको, better insulation in building designs, energy efficient appliances, smart energy management, adoption of green building statements. So the more we are going to go for climate resilient cities, the lower emissions and reduced energy cost is going to happen. So these are the three major commitments which have been put up in the Bonn conference of 2026, and that leads us to a very important discussion over here, because you are having your upcoming mains examination. You can expect questions around them. I can give you certain examples. For example, I think in 2021 we had this question, because UNFCCC as a body is very important. Whenever any important development has happened, UPSC has asked questions around it, and climate change is a hot burning topic for the examination as well. Example, when we had this 26th COP, we had a question, describe the major outcomes of 26th session of Conference of Parties to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. What are the commitments made by India in this conference? Again, you can expect similar questions around this topic, and that is how you are going to understand ki PY linkage kaise karna hai with respective news what I am reading. The next topic, a very important one, is after Australia, United Kingdom has banned social media for children below 16 years of age. So again, how important it is. Again, social media, a very important theme with respect to GS paper number 1, society. And again, paper number 2 also, vulnerable sections, children come over there. So you can expect questions around them in your mains examination, because society for GS paper 1 is very dynamic in nature. You are going to expect questions, something happening around you since last 1 year. So all those themes could be picked up to by UPSC to ask you questions around society, and maybe the vulnerable sections of social justice in paper number 2. So please prepare that segment as well very well. So let's understand, and a very common thing, there has been a lot of discussions, the impact and how we are going to deal with it, what kind of challenges we are going to face if we are going to ban social media for children below 16 years of age. All such things we have discussed. We'll quickly see through them once. So Australia was the first country, right, a couple of years back. It banned social media completely for children below 16 years of age. Other countries include Indonesia, Malaysia, Greece, Turkey, they have been restricting children's access to social media through age-based regulations. In our country, Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh have announced plans for such age-based restrictions for social media. You can use it as an example. कि जहाँ भी question पूछ रहा है social media impact on children from Indian context, you can use these as an example in your conclusions कि how these two states have been planning to implement the ban of social media or regulation of social media for children below 16 years of age, right, or age-based restrictions. Now, very briefly, why do we need this ban? A very important thing. Number one is mental health. We have seen that how exactly social media is impacting the mental health of children. They are exposed to a lot of content. It is creating a sense of insecurity, a constant comparison, anxiety, all cyberbullying, all such things are there, and that is leading to the problem of mental stress or mental health is affecting due to this. Then we are going to see we have something called as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. All such things are there. Then we have safety. We have seen that how children are exposed to a lot of things. For example, there has been instances of cyberbullying, there has been acts of child grooming, then child sexual abuse. We have seen a dangerous trend. For example, you must have seen a very unfortunate event of blackout challenge, where again children took up a challenge to how much they can control their breath, and that has led to a loss of life a lot of children's. And that is something which is again creating an idea that again how important it is to not compromise on the safety of children in the name of social media. Then we have addiction. We have seen that again nowadays how AI has picked up the trends. It is going to show you only those content which you want to see, and that is something happening in case of children. Children watch a specific set of content and which they like, and this AI has led to showing them same nature of content which is of course extending the amount of time children are using social media, and they are getting addicted to this, and that's an idea over here. Then we have, it is of course with a lot of screen time, you're going to see less face-to-face interaction, less communication, less peer group things in schools, right? So socializing skills are getting compromised. It is promoting what? Sedentary behavior. You're not going indulging in any physical activity. There are many such things, but again you can use them in your answers. Then what kind of challenges are there with respect to banning of social media? It is very important. We have seen that although there have been bans, but there are other tools, for example VPN, right? You must have seen how restrictions are getting bypassed, how fakely people are telling up that we are beyond this age, right? So all such things are there, that is again leading to less effectiveness of these kind of bans. Then infringement of rights. As per the United Nations Convention on Rights of Children under Article 12, it is a right of a child to decide, recognized as child's right to be heard in decisions affecting them. That is going to be coming in the ideas of the banning social media platform for children below 16 years of age. Then we have democratic engagements. We have seen that again how in a democracy everyone has the right to participate in the process of democracy in the country, and social media has of course become a very good or a very go-to tool for experiencing democracy in the country. And there are certain vulnerable sections, for example LGBTQ plus children, right? So they are the ones who are putting up their concerns, their viewpoints on these social media platforms. If that is going to be banned for them, it is going to be compromising on their democratic engagements, right? Then others, it is of course we have seen that with the growing influence of online education, how social media has of course is a boon and a bane. Both of things are there. So that is where there are certain things of education, peer interaction, digital literacy, all of those are going to be compromised if social media is completely banned. So what should be the way forward? So there has to be a consensus between government, between social media companies, between parents. All those people have to come together to make this whole idea of making social media space safe and safe worthy for children over there. For example, governments, social media companies, schools, parents, they must work together that how exactly we are going to implement age verification systems, stronger privacy protections, parental controls, digital literacy programs, stricter regulation of harmful content. So again, if as per my understanding and my viewpoint is concerned, I would feel ki there has to be an idea where again not a complete ban at this stage is feasible for India, but again we are going to go for regulations, and that is how we are going to make the space of social media safe for our children's of the country, right? So there has been questions around social media in UPSC. You can expect, because there has been, this theme has been there in news with respect to social media and its impact on children. There has been banning by certain countries. You can expect question around it in your upcoming mains examination. Let's see, there was one more question in 2024, couple of years back itself. Social media and encrypting messages services pose a serious security challenge. Okay? What measures have been adopted at various levels to address these security implications of social media? What measures have been adopted at various levels? So again, levels means at in terms of internationally, nationally, by government, by social media regulators, all such things are going to be written over here, and also suggest any other remedies to address the problem. Here it gives you a good amount of scope to put forward your viewpoints. You can use certain examples. You can use examples of Australia. You can use examples of, let's say, UK recently. So again, contemporary examples could be used towards the end of an answer, and that is how, this is the nature of question, which is giving you a hint how some themes which have been there in news, they get reflected as a form of question in the mains examination. So I have to keep an eye on things around the developments which are interlinkaged between my syllabus of the examination and something happening in the current affairs. Then again, a very important topic, water crisis, very important for GS paper number 3, climate change, natural resources. You can use it as a topic in geography as well. So we have seen the effects of El Nino. There has been of course effects of El Nino, which is going to be experienced in the manner we are going to experience monsoon this year. So this whole idea of summer, in summertime, of course, we are facing the problem of availability of water. Now we are going to see that how water crisis situation is again on an increasing trend. So there has been a study which tells India's water crisis. Let's understand that. Let's look at the data first. The annual per capita availability of water is expected to decline from 1,500 cubic meters today. Currently, we have, for everybody in the country, we have ability of 1,500 cubic meters of water, and that is going to be reduced by 300 cubic meters to 1,200 cubic meters by 2050. That has been the projection. And water scarcity is a idea wherein there's a cutoff availability of per capita of 1,000. Iske niche chala gaya, then again we are going to sell ki we are having a problem of water scarcity. So this is an idea which is again expressing and putting an idea that again how the amount of water available for each individual is shrinking due to what? Reasons are population growth, overuse, pollution, and climate change. So that is where we need to incorporate strategies to make sure that we are going to use the water sustainably and without compromising on the needs of the upcoming future generation. So let's discuss first what are the reasons of water crisis. What are them? Number one, we are going to see about demand supply imbalance. We have seen that again how much rapidly we are going for urbanization, industrialization, right? And population growth is there. Agriculture has been demanding. As per the Niti Aayog report, India's water demand could become twice by 2030. Why I'm telling this to you, you can use them in your answers. Whenever you quote any data or whenever you are validating any point in your answers, please make sure you quote the source that according to this, that is going to substantiate your point more as compared to plainly writing that India's water demand could become twice by 2030. And that is how you are going to come down from this 14,000 to 3,000, which is going to be appearing for the interviews, right? Then we have seen that again how groundwater reserves, which provide nearly 2/3 of the irrigation water, are being depleted at an alarming rate as per the Niti Aayog. So the impact is what? Increased water shortage are being found in cities and rural areas. That's the first impact or factors. Then the second factor is agriculture over extraction. We have seen that again how there has been a very unjudicious use of water, specifically in the agriculture sector of economy. Agriculture consumes 80% of India's fresh water resources. Although this is very important, but again, there has to be a more judicious use of water over here. And water intensive crops are such as paddy and sugarcane are cultivated even in water scarce region. जहाँ पानी की कमी है, of course, you should grow what kind of crops who can thrive or who can sustain in water crisis as well. But still, we are using irrigation facilities to even grow rice and paddy or sugarcane in areas which have a shortage or crisis of water. Then in states like Punjab and Haryana, excessive groundwater pumping for paddy cultivation has caused significant water tables reduction. Example of this. So that is leading to what? There has been rapid decrease in the level of groundwaters. Aquifers are getting depleted, and that is leading to compromising on the groundwater availability. The third factor here is pollution of water bodies. We have seen that again how much industries are contributing to pollution of water bodies, right? So there are instances ki rivers, groundwaters, lakes are getting mixed up with untreated sewage, industrial effluents, agriculture runoff containing fertilizer. So as per the Central Pollution Control Board, it has reported that about 350 river stretches are polluted in our country. That is creating what? That even if water is available, but is that water safe to consume? That is the idea, and that is again an idea of factor of water scarcity. The next factor is climate change. Very self understood. We have seen that how climate change has made monsoons very unpredictable in nature. Areas which have rainfall throughout the year are experiencing less rainfall. Areas who do not receive rainfall or receive less rainfall are receiving more rainfall, and that has made the pattern of agriculture, climate change, a lot of dependent and a lot of uncertainty is there around the idea of climate change. So monsoons again unpredictable, climate change has altered rainfall patterns, extreme weather events such as floods and droughts are increasing the frequency and intensity. So again, it is reducing the reliability of water sources and greater regional disparities in water availability. So these are the four factors. Now let's understand what could be done. And this is a very brilliant piece of article which is exactly culminating to the demand of the question. Agar question aayega around water crisis, you can directly use those content in the form of factors and suggestion. Right? Suggestion kya diya gaya hai? Number one, the National Circular Water Mission. What is Circular Water Mission? Basically the meaning of reusing the water. So use and dispose method say we need to change it to what? A circular water economy, where again water is reused and recycled. How it can happen across different institutions at place? Number one, we are going to use technology. Technology is going to establish decentralized fecal sludge and wastewater treatment plants with the use of technology, and it is of course going to promote what? Water recycling and reuse technologies. Institutions, urban local bodies, they are going to create special purpose vehicles with respect to ideas of water management. These entities can manage water use projects professionally and sustainably. Then at a finance level, we need to go for market based pricing of water, because at a time, of course, there is water is getting priced, but it has to be linked to market, and that is going to help people understand and judiciously of course use water. But there are vulnerable sections of society. For them, of course, we are not going to be compromising of water availability to them. So again, we are going to continue targeted subsidies for vulnerable sections. Then behavioral change. Many times we have seen that how people are very reluctant to use water coming down for waste water treatment plants, right? So we need to promote public acceptance for what? Treated and recycled water, right? We need to conduct water awareness campaigns and behavioral nudges, and these are the ways in which we can tackle this problem. You can directly use all these content indirectly in your answers with respect to solutions and way forward. Then in terms of India, we are going to follow city-specific water crisis impact initiatives, because different cities face different kind of water crisis, and that there could not be a one solution for everything or every city. And that's where we have talked about Delhi and Bengaluru, right? For example, for these two cities, We are going to target of reuse of treated water for peri-urban agriculture. For Bengaluru, we can, because we have seen a lot of urbanization happening over there, it has led to ideas about concretization. Cities are getting concreted and groundwater is not getting recharged. So we are going to support agriculture and groundwater recharge through reuse. In terms of Chennai, we have seen that lake rejuvenation and wastewater recycling has to be done. Then in Surat, industrial use of treated wastewater has to be done. These are city specific things which could also be done in order to lessen the impact of water crisis in India. So again, a very important theme. I'll show you one question was asked, I think in 2020, two questions from same theme. Example, what are the salient features of Jal Shakti Abhiyan launched by Government of India for water conservation and wastewater security? Then suggest measures to improve water shortage and irrigation system to make its judicious use under depleting scenario. Again, that is an example of this. Now, there can be questions around water crisis because that is again there in news. So you can expect questions around them. So that's how you are going to interlink current affairs and you're going to understand which themes are important for my upcoming mains examination. We're going to go for news in short. Number one, global economic prospect reports released by World Bank. So again, under this, we have seen that again how we are going to see a economic slowdown. Slowdown ka reason kya hai? The war going on in the West Asia region, right? And that has, this World Bank report has predicted that again we are going to see a global slowdown, and the global growth, which was projected to be around 2.9% in 2025, is going to be 2.5%, and that is decline which we're going to see. And why? Reasons kya diya gaya hai? US Israel Iran conflict, Strait of Hormuz disruptions, rising energy prices, fueling inflation and keeping up the global borrowing cost elevated, right? And then good news for us for South Asian regions. This report has suggested key remains fastest growing region through growth may moderate from 7 to 6.3%, and that's an idea. Reports very important. You can code these kind of datas in your mains answers, or you can expect questions around this report released by which body, which institution, those kind of questions for your prelims examination. Then we have special additional excise duty, right? So recently Ministry of Finance has imposed an additional excise duty on the export of crude oil and petroleum products, because we have seen that how much the tensions in West Asia region has led to the surge of crude oil prices and petroleum products. Now in that situation, if companies start to export, right, and then of course it is going to be compromising on the availability of these products in our country, and that's how additional excise duty has been imposed on them, and that's the news all about. So the finance ministry has imposed a flexible tax imposed on select products, mainly domestic crude oil and exported petroleum fuel such as petrol, diesel and ATF, airline turbine fuel, right? So aim, of course, to enhance the petroleum products by this incentivizing exports, right? And it is coming under Central Excise Act of 1944, right? This kind of tax is also called as windfall tax, right? So basically, why it is, what kind of tax is windfall tax? Important for your prelims based questions, or you must have read in economics. There are many sectors of economy who, due to certain maybe let's say a global crisis situation, their products are becoming very expensive in the international market. Of course, they are going to take benefit out of exports. For example, there has been rise in the prices of petroleum products and crude oil. Now if some manufacturer from India is using that to his or her advantage, of course that is of course the rule of the business, but again, then also we need to be ensuring that again the availability is appropriately there in a country, and that is where government in such instances impose some a tax called as a windfall tax, right? That's an idea over here. Next, we have new series of wholesale price index. Of course, we have seen, we have been following the base year of 2011 and 12. Now, we have revised the wholesale price base year from 2011-12 to 2022-23 in order to accommodate the changing nature of prices around products. What is wholesale price index? So, whenever for the very first time products are sold in the market at the bulk in bulk, of course, that is called as wholesale price index. So the price changes at that level is basically going to tell us ki how price or how inflation is affecting the producers of the economy, and we are going to track down the supply side inflation, or we call it as a cost push inflation, right? And that is something which is going to be reflected by this wholesale price index. Now for the very first time, India is planning to shift from WPI regime to producers price index, and that is again the idea. It has also released three things. First editions of output producer price index. What is output producers price index? The amount of price paid by, or the amount of money the producers are getting for the output they have made. Then something called as trial input producer price index, if what kind of input costs is paid by producers in manufacturing of goods and services. Then services producer price index, we have seen that again there are a lot of wholesale price index does not take up into consideration the ideas of services. It only caters to goods. But in this, the service producer price index also measures the level of changes of prices of services in the economy. For example, 7 service-based banking, securities, transaction, insurance, management of pension funds, railways, passenger air, and telecom, because these are the things which are directly impacting the common man in the country, and they have to be tracked as well, right? So the producer price index will replace WPI in 5 years. That is an idea. So we have discussed about them, right? So that is how you're going to see them. Then we have the sage Agastya. So again, a very important personality from your ancient history, right? So again, these kind of personality comes back in news. For example, recently our honorable vice president has inaugurated, released a book with the name of Agastya, the Unifier, and that is how this personality came back in news. So sage Agastya is basically also known as Agastya, Agastya, Munivar, and Kumbhaja, which is born from a pot. So his literary and linguistic contributions consist of, in literature, he has composed several hymns of Rig Veda. He has been a very important contributor of Tamil literature. He has revered as a father of Tamil grammar. He has been given credit with authoring Agathyan and contributing to Tamil Sangam tradition. Then, along with his wife and disciple Lopamudra, he has composed several Vedic hymns. He has also been he has been mentioned in the epics of Ramayana and Mahabharata. Then, in terms of cultural integration, he has been serving as a link or a cultural integration between North and South India by integrating Vedic and Southern traditions through Agatheswar temples and Pothigai hills and the Kaveri river. Then he has been contributing to science and medicine in the form of, he is a founder of Siddha systems of medicines, right? And he was one of the 18 Siddhas and author of the seminal works on urban medicine, minerals and healing, very important. Then he has been, in terms of contribution, he has defeated the Deman brothers, Vatapai and Illava, and he has subdued Vindhya range, thereby preserving cosmic order. All these things are very important about the personality, his contributions in different field, which has come up in news because a book has been released on his name, and that is how it is very important for your mains examination you can think of on, or specifically for your next year prelims examination. Then we have the next topic, that is WTU Marut, which stands for Wind Turbine Manufacturing and Resource Utilization Tracker. You must have seen we have been growing importance of renewable energy resources, and one of them is wind energy, of course. But there has been concerns around the supply chain, because wind energy manufacturing requires a lot of inputs in terms of equipments, in terms of supply, in terms of different things, and the supply chain was very much disintegrated. So through the making up of this particular portal, everything is going to be integrated at one place with respect to wind energy manufacturing in the country. So of course it is launched for India has launched its first wind turbine supply chain management portal, and this is developed by Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Very simple, and it is aiming to enhance supply chain transparency, facilitate supplier discovery, strengthening domestic surround sourcing and boosting India's export, and functions, of course, end-to-end tracking of the components from manufacturing facilities to project sites. And that is how very important step. Then we have India and Slovakia, very important. Our Prime Minister has been in the visit over here, and for the very first time, he has visit Slovakia. And again, it's a first ever visit by an Indian Prime Minister to the country since its independence. So he was, of course, conferred with Slovakia's highest state honor, the Order of White Double Cross and First Class. So basically, what is the impact of visit in terms of IR? Very important. So as of now, India is in trade surplus with respect to Slovakia, and India has been having a collaboration in terms of space with Slovakia. For example, the first Slovak satellite, that is SK-Cube, was launched atop the Indian launcher PSLV XL. Then in this particular meeting, we have engaged and we have moved from bilateral trade to a comprehensive partnership which has been aiming at deepening the cooperation across various sectors. And for the very first time, we have set up our Indian Council for Cultural Relations, coming of course under Minister of External Affairs, to promote India's cultural relations with other countries in Slovakia. Very important thing you can see, and you can see around that developments, which is very important for your examination. Then we have Siam River, very important. A major project has not been given or given clearance, which was going to be there in this particular Siam River. So again, the Environment Ministry's Expert Appraisal Committee have deferred a proposal of 1000 megawatt dam on Siam River to reduce the concerns related to environmental flows. Now, very important concept, what are environmental flows? Now, dam ke around we are going to have some kind of construction of dam in that particular river. So now it is, what is the meaning of environmental flow? Environmental flow basically means that how much quantity, timing and quality of water that must be released downstream from a dam to maintain river ecology, and that was again getting compromised, and that's why this project has been deferred. So basics about Siam River, very important. It is originating near India-China border and flows from west to east within Arunachal Pradesh, and of course its drainage system is, it's a major right bank tributary of Siang River, which is of course the name of Brahmaputra River before it entering Assam. Important facts here. You can see them. Then foreign exchange management, non-debt instruments rules. We have seen couple of weeks or 1 week back, we have discussed this news as well, ki how government is again trying to make sure that again we are going to have good foreign portfolio investment, and we have made certain changes. We have removed certain capping limits, and for the non-debt instruments, there has been changing. Kya change aaya hai? You're going to see we have expanded the investor base. Earlier, only OCIs and again PIOs were allowed, but now we are allowing any person resident outside India beyond NRIs and OCIs who can invest directly in the listed Indian companies through stock exchanges, right? And again, investment leading to ownership of or controlled by entities from countries sharing a land border with India continue to require prior government approval. Then in terms of investment, limits have also been increased in order to get more portfolio coming to India, of course. And now the total holding by an overseas investor shall be less than 10% of total paid up equity capital. So important changes. Then we have the last news, that is Kiev Peach Course Lavra. Again, we have seen that how Russia-Ukraine war has been there and how there has been a constant disturbance around the region. So recently, Russia has launched missiles and drone strikes against the major Ukrainian cities and damaging one of these regions, which is called as the Monastery of Caves, which is again a UNESCO World Heritage Site renowned for its extensive underground cave monastery networks, right? So basics about them, very important, because as it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, you are going to see about them, right? So it was founded by Saint Anthony and Saint Theodosy in the 11th century. It comprises of unique surface and the underground churches from 11th to 19th centuries. It has a lot of monuments in terms of include the Dormition Cathedral, the Trinity Gate Church, the Great Bell Tower, the Church of All Saints, and the Reflectory Church. All those things very important from your perspective of art and culture in your prelims examination. Now with this, we come to the end of today's news discussion video. All important questions which could be framed from the topics which I have discussed will pop up in your your screen. Now, as we have discussed it, as you have read the news today document, now it is your responsibility to solve those questions, which is going to give you confidence in terms of how I am able to solve questions from something which I have read and understood. Please post your answers in the comment section to create a competitive spirit around students who are watching this initiative of Vision IS. Lastly, Vision has come up with a digital current affairs platform. Please go and explore this website. It is going to be a one-stop solution for all your current affairs need as for your UPSC examination. All the very best, and thank you so much.